Ready anytime.
Okay, welcome. We'll start the meeting, the 25th meeting of the Madawaska School Committee. We'll call to order. We'll stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll have a moment of silence. And any adjustments to the agenda?
I think we will need to add a second executive session for the purposes of consulting with information from our legal counsel.
Okay. Thank you, Ben. And anybody here to speak on any items of the agenda? No. We'll move to the approval of the minutes of special meeting on November 11th. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes? Robert moves. Do I have a second? I'll second. Mindy? Any discussion? All those in favor? And then we'll move to approval of the financial statements. We have a few, 5. Can we do that all in one group?
And
Cluster them. So we'll take a motion to approve those financial statements. Do you have a motion?
I'll move for all 5.
Or do you want to do them separately?
We can do all 5.
Okay,
If Ben's okay with that.
do I have a second? Louis? Do we have any discussion?
Yeah.
Louis?
So if we look at the October, I was just showing this to Lucy, for me, something to be adjusted here. The October, the totals, the last total will change, and I'll let Lucy, if she wants to tell us what the amount is, if she's already figured it, but we've got food service twice. We've got it in yellow, the 114,963. And I would have it down right before the final total, under the school lunch program. So it's double both. So it'll have an effect on the total expenses year to date. And I think it's like that for all the other months as well.
Yeah, I can just have that in total adjusted to the correct amount once you want to approve them that way. You can just put it as amended with the revised total on the final page.
Is everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Any further discussion on any of those? Louis, are you okay with that?
Yes,
Yeah.
sorry, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Anybody else? Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor? And Mr. Superintendent?
I just wanted to give you a few updates from the department. There was a face mask guidance update now 2 weeks ago. The DOE has put more stringent guidelines on face mask breaks at school. The old guidance had a little more flexibility because the weather was nicer, and the understanding was the majority of face mask breaks were occurring outside. Now that the weather's turned cold, obviously that's changing things. So we did have to remind our staff that when students do have a face mask off, especially when they're eating snacks and lunch, they are not to be closer than 6 feet with each other. Then they should not be facing each other at any time. So if you go to any of the lunch sessions at either of our 2 schools, you see students sitting on opposite sides of a table, and you see them all facing in one direction, and that's done per these guidelines. And making sure that we're following it. The update did also include that when you are face mask breaking, the guidance is that you're stationary. So essentially, we're not, even though we're further than 6 feet apart, we shouldn't be walking around without a face mask. So stationary, and when eating, not facing each other. Quarantine, the required quarantine from the CDC changed from 14 days down to 10 days, 7 days if a negative test is received. When I sent this to you, the Maine CDC had not adopted it yet. Since then, the Maine CDC has told schools essentially you can adopt the 10 days if you want, but the 14 days is erring on the side of caution. In speaking with our school nurses, for the time being, given what's happening in our region, we feel more comfortable with the 14-day quarantine. And we're just going to hold on to that for a few more weeks past the Christmas break and see if things die down a little bit. It might be a few days excessive, but we just feel a little more comfortable with the 14-day quarantine. Any questions about that? I do want to review our hybrid and remote learning plans. I'm going to focus on a hybrid because that's where we are right now as of tomorrow. And before I go into the hybrid plan, I do have just a little presentation. That's not the right. Hold on. About why we decided to go in hybrid at this time. So, let me make that bigger. A couple of points of why we've decided to go into hybrid at this time. Local case count was +9. It has been for the past couple of days. And Dr. Roberts has informed us that there's probably more on the way. In fact, I can tell you there's at least one for sure, more on the way tomorrow, per a positive case count that we received today. An individual that is associated with Fort Kenton Elementary School. So I know that's definitely going to be one more at least tomorrow. There are 39 pending cases at 39 pending at Northern Maine Medical Center as of yesterday, and I don't know what the update will be today. Aroostook County case is up to 31.3. This was yesterday when I made this slide. It's probably a little higher today.
Is that based on the 28-day or is that cumulative?
That's cumulative.
Cumulative. Okay.
Yep.
But
Yep.
what's the 28-day?
I do not know what the 28-day total is. We did have 424 cases on Monday, and I hear that we had over 400 as well yesterday. So those case counts are spiking quite a bit. We know that hybrid allows for students to remain in school every other day. High school learners continue with their regular scope and sequence. So when you're at home as a middle high schooler, you're zooming into your class and half your classmates are in class, and then the opposite day that flip-flops. So you're always in class, whether you're home or you're in school as a middle high schooler. Elementary learners are receiving in-class instruction today, and then tomorrow they go home with follow-up activities, and then that continues to repeat, where the expectation for elementary is not to Zoom live in class every other day, because it's just not manageable for quite a bit of those kids.
Do they still have access to their teacher if they need it?
They have access to the teacher. The teachers have a dedicated office hours, if you will, to reach out. Plus the entire day Wednesday, when students are not in school, is an entire day of access to teachers for questions.
And when do they get their devices, elementary kids?
We didn't send them home this week because it was a lot to get a hold on, but we should be ready by Monday.
Monday.
We were working on that today.
Hybrid, in the design of it, we create two clear cohorts, cohort A, cohort B. And for the purposes of contact tracing, it does make things a little bit easier in the event that we, in the event that we would have an individual who would test positive. Hybrid allows for the staff to have 1 day a week without having the students in class. And then that's also a day used for deep cleaning of the buildings. And staff have been advised that they're to reach out to connect remotely with the struggling learners for intervention. They can also use the remainder of their time for planning. While we are in hybrid, we're going to shift our Friday workshop days to Wednesdays, because Wednesdays are going to be a day where the students are not in school anyway. So next Friday is supposed to be a workshop day. There'll be a notice going out tomorrow saying that Friday is now shifted to Wednesday, so it doesn't interrupt our cohorts. And obviously, we chose hybrid because nobody wants to go remote.
So hybrid, there's still no after-school activities though?
No after-school activities,
Okay.
and that's per the DOE guidance. So winter sports is on hold for the time being. This would have been a time for conditioning and that type of thing. And I'm still going to go through the winter sports information with you at the end of this meeting for your approval when we go out of hybrid. Why didn't we decide to go remote at this time? Remote's only to be considered when hybrid is not possible due to presumed positive cases in school. We all know that the situation in MSD 27 has gone remote. That is not a reality in your school right now. Since Sunday, there's been over 50 contact tracing and identified close contacts based on the event that happened in SAD 27. Those contacts do involve school employees, and today we identified a positive case of an individual in the Fort Kent Elementary School. Luckily, that individual was not in school when they were contagious or infectious, I should say, and so the school population was not impacted, luckily. And again, no one wants to go in remote, so the better we can do to avoid remote, the better. So we're not in that phase right now. And then we talked about staff working from home on Wednesdays. Some staff have been asking, and we're not encouraging it. However, we have had some requests involving medical notes, and we do honor those things. But we worked with the teachers yesterday. I presented this very presentation to them via Zoom, and we talked about why we want them in school. Obviously, on the cohort days, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, but even on Wednesday, because our schools are safe to work remotely. There's no cause for concern in our school at this time. So that's just a quick why we're in hybrid. And I just wanted to take the time to make sure that I'm explaining that to you all as well.
Thanks for everything. I never got back on the email. You're clarifying, the low, medium, high for staying in school, remote, hybrid.
Yeah.
We had a number, then the number disappeared, but your explanation brought back at least a number that you guys are still using behind the scenes.
Yeah. What was difficult with the old numbers, people were watching that 6, and they were holding us to that 6.
Yeah.
And like Dr. Roberts says, she says, that 6 might be 6 per day, and then it goes back. So if we see consecutive days with rising, and that's what we're seeing right now.
But you still have that as a baseline. That's where I was looking. It seems the number is still comforting.
Yes.
You're still using it. It's just not.
It's not advertised.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So in our hybrid model guide, you guys have seen this before. We are using the state index. The state has not put Madawaska County in yellow, so we're not in a hybrid because the state has put us there. We're in a yellow because we, through discussion with our medical advisors, feel that there are enough cases, and again, we've eliminated these numbers. It should say moderate. We're at moderate new cases, and that's why we've opted to go to that model. This is what it looks like for the students. Everyone for grades 3 to 12 here at Madawaska Elementary are placed in cohorts. with the exception of students identified, IEP students identified with needs that will allow them to be in school the 4 days. So there are some IEP learners that are not in these cohorts. They are Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. And those are some of our more needy students who we just know cannot miss, days of school to the best that we can keep them in, we will. But if you're a cohort A student, you're in school on Monday, you're out on Tuesday. Everybody's out on Wednesday for the deep cleaning, but we have services available remotely. You return to school on Thursday, and then you go home on Friday. You'll notice the color coding doesn't have the same AB, and that's because in order for us at the high school level to make sure that we're hitting all the blocks and the block schedule, we want to make sure that the students at least have the opportunity to have a live class every other time according to the block. So the block is a blue day, white day, then they come back for a white day and a blue day. So you can see that cohort A hits a live class on a blue day and a remote class on a blue day. The same thing for the white days. The same thing happens for cohort B. Lee's was able to manage, because of the smaller class sizes and because we are using as much of the space in the elementary school as possible. Grades pre-K to 2 will be in school every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So those are the babies that we really wanted to keep in school anyway. So we're very fortunate that we're able to keep those students in on those days. Lunches are provided during a hybrid, and the lunch follows what the students are doing. And what Melanie and the lunch staff have done is when you're in school on Monday, they're sending you home with a bag lunch for Tuesday and Wednesday, and you come back on Thursday for a school lunch, and they send you home Friday with a bag lunch. Same thing with cohort B. They come in on Tuesday with a lunch. They get sent home Wednesday and Thursday with 2 bag lunches. Friday they have a hot lunch, and they're sent home a bag lunch for the following Monday. That way we're always providing lunch even though the students aren't in school, and we do not have to send for home deliveries because we can do that by handing bags to the kids as they're walking out on their in-school days. That essentially is the hybrid in a nutshell. I know that the staff have worked all day today to kind of tie up loose ends. We're having conversations about essential learning because students, especially at the elementary school, that are going to be missing every other day and not connecting remotely. We have to really hone in on what is the essential learning during this 2-week period that we're in hybrid. So those conversations that have gone on, and the teachers have prioritized what the focus is during this remote period so that we can get the most out of the experience.
So Wednesday, there's no new learning, but they can still have access to their teacher. The teacher might still send them home with something for Wednesdays.
Yeah, the teachers might send them home. They might say, go check your Google Classroom and see what's populated there. Does anybody have any questions about the hybrid?
Thanks for grouping the kids from both schools on the same.
And that's all the work from these guys. They made sure that the families, cohorts stay together. That was really important to us as well for the schedule of families. So family cohorts are together. Any questions? All right. Next item I have is the CRF2 reallocation. We got a surprise the day before Thanksgiving, and as we were all walking out the door for a couple of days off, we got notification that we had more CRF funds through a bonus round. And the reason this happened was when we were applying for the original CRF, there was a box, there was a question at the end of the application that said, shall there be more funds available? How much does your district request? And we basically threw out a number that 150,000 would be nice. And lo and behold, we got 151, right? So no, 150, 125. So this was Wednesday. at the end of that statement says, oh, by the way, these are due on Tuesday. So we knew we had Monday and Tuesday to work to get these out. So Lucy, Giselle, and I scrambled Monday and Tuesday, working with the administrators and everyone to figure out, what we could do right away to spend these funds and submit the project. We did provide you an overview of those projects. One of the biggest projects that we were able to secure in this is a new device for all of the educators in the district. This is year 4 of the MLTI. So essentially the devices that the teachers and the administrators have right now are a 4-year-old device. By purchasing now through CRF, when MLTI rolls out their next phase, which we anticipate this spring, we won't have to purchase all the adult devices with the students. So that's a big savings. I think we ended up ordering 50 devices.
57,000.
So that's going to be a reduction in our technology line for MLTI when that comes, because we've purchased it in this round. Giselle was the lead for the Madawaska project. So Giselle, do you want to just quickly summarize some of the big ticket items?
As you just mentioned, the computers for the educators, but we also are replacing the computers for the elementary school lab, which were several years old, I believe. They were obsolete. So rather than to buy more desktops, we went with laptops on a cart. So should those computers be needed outside of the computer lab in a class or somewhere, they can be rolled away. So that's another big chunk right there. That was $26,000. And then we ensured that all of the students at the elementary school would have devices in case we went into full remote. So an additional 25 other computers were ordered for that. And then Paul was telling us that he needed storage for all of the PPE that we're getting. We had purchased playground equipment in CRF round 1, or actually round 2. So this is part 2, but place to store this. So in 3 days, we had to figure out how do we get a structure. We went with the Amish in Easton. We did go for quotes, and we did ask local builders, but so we're gonna get sheds, 2 sheds, 14 by 36, which is the maximum they sell. We're gonna put those side by side, and that will give storage for some of the materials. And in addition, it will help with our phys ed program. He's got bicycles, skis, all kinds of stuff that we just can't keep cramming into the gymnasium. So those were the big projects, and otherwise there were little projects. The 2 board members that are on the facilities committee, we had met and I had talked about 16,000 in extra cost for our windows at the elementary. We moved from double pane to triple pane. I threw that into the grant, so that's going to be covered. So those are the big projects. You've got the other ones there. There's a good special services project that was put in. Apple pencils, especially useful for our math teachers, so that when they're teaching remote, they can actually do the problem solving, not just with the keyboard. And upgrading a few cameras in the elementary school. Basically, that's it. You have the list there. Again, these all had to be written up to relate to COVID and why we needed it. So we tried as best we could to purchase things that we know are going to help us into the future because of COVID, but also beyond COVID.
Any CRF bonus questions? Just an update on where we are to date with the CRF 1 and CRF 2. We're currently making sure that we're looking into every project lead person, so whoever requested the project in any of those, we're following up with them, have all the requests been made, has everything been purchased, and Lucy's going through and making sure that we've closed out those projects, if you will, and we're pretty well into that. We're starting to receive reimbursement for some of the CRF projects. There are school districts in the state running into cash flow problems, especially with big ticket items that they've purchased ahead of time, a bus or two, and you're not getting a reimbursement right in time. So now you're looking at payroll and wondering, can you manage payroll? We're in a good place. We're monitoring that and making sure that, we're staying ahead of it. And what we've instructed for the next upcoming reimbursement request, we're going to front load our big ticket items so that we've already paid those, but we want those big reimbursements to come first before some of the smaller projects. And that way we can rest assured that we're not going to have a cash flow problem. There are some school districts that are actually going out for loans because they can't make payroll. But like I said, unless Lucy tells me otherwise now, I think we're in a good place. Right, Lucy? Right. Maine education assessment information. If you remember 4 or 5 years ago, the Maine education assessment, that's our spring assessment for students in grades 3 to 8 and grade 11, had moved to what was called the Smarter Balance test. It was a very controversial test at the time. It was kind of folded in with the Common Core and all those things. And the Smarter Balance did not last too long. And so about 3 years ago, Maine moved to a new platform. It was called Cognia. They were calling it the Empower test. And we did that for a couple of years. Last year, the Empower test was put on hold because of COVID. And the department took the advantage of that pause to fire Cognia, or not contract Cognia anymore. So that leaves us in another state of unknown, where we don't have in a Maine education assessment test that's going to be continuing. Typically, you like an assessment to last for years so that you can compile enough data to compare, 1 year to another, and then base your annual goals over. But when you keep moving the test, it's kind of harder to do that. So a lot of superintendents have been advocating for a platform that all schools, or most schools throughout the state, use anyway, and that's the NWEA test. We use the NWEAs, or we have been since I was teaching here in the district. So we have historical data for that for a long time. The spring NWEA test is actually going to serve as our state assessment test, which a lot of superintendents are really excited about. I believe our educators are excited about. We've secured another platform here in the district called the STAR test. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the STAR test as our progress monitoring test, our fall, winter, spring test. And the NWEA is going to be our formative test. So we're going to take advantage of both those platforms. Our students are very familiar with NWEA. We're encouraged that they'll do well because it's not going to be a new test that they have to learn. And there's all kinds of information out there about the test itself confusing kids. So we're hopeful that this will work out. So this should start, barring another school closure, this should start this spring. The state of Maine will also purchase or reimburse NWEA because they are now using it as their state assessment. So whereas we have purchased NWEA this year, we will be receiving a reimbursement for that because the state is assigning. In your packet, you have some admin reports from Mr. Anderson, from Ms. Pelletier, and from Dr. Sellers. Don't know if you have any questions for them specific to those reports. If you do, they'll email them a question, and I'm sure they'll get back to you.
I have a question on, this is the high school.
Yep.
You've got the remote students, and we're listing 26.
Yeah, that's no longer accurate.
Is it the 27 that's in here, or?
Yeah, right now, we actually have 3 in the 7th grade, you have 5 in the 8th grade, you have 11 in the 9th grade, you have 7 in the 10th grade. You have 10 in the 11th grade. And you have 13 in the 12th grade. For a total of 49. And a few more knocking on the door.
And how many of those at Wayne were since SAD 27 moved to remote learning?
Probably 15.
So there's an increase of 15 since.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And once the student chooses to go remote learning, how long can they stay in that platform?
They're there until the end of the quarter. January 28th, January 29th.
And then they can choose to renew again?
At that point, we can have those conversations. Our preference is to bring them back into the fold.
Yeah.
They're not gonna get the education remote that they're gonna get in the classroom. The majority of the kids that are remoted out, probably 95% of the students that are remoted out are because the parents opted for that. They called us, it wasn't a negotiation, it was, I'm pulling my kids. So we made adjustments and we put them in remote programming, and that's, hopefully we'll be able to pull them back in come January if we get a better.
Probably not a fair question, but how much of it do you think is for safety and how much of it do you think is just unsatisfaction with how things are going in school?
I would say the larger is a safety issue, especially since,
A perceived safety issue.
What's that?
A
A perceived safety issue.
Yeah.
The parents are pulling the kids because they want to make sure, some of them have pre-existing conditions and so on and so forth, and they just feel that from their perspective, that is a safer protocol for them.
What we try to remind parents is that, the schools are following some of the most strict guidelines, stricter than you'll have in any of your local businesses. Probably not quite as stringent as the healthcare facilities, but we're definitely quite, doing quite well. COVID is not in our schools. So we try to remind folks about that. And if it is in our schools, if it does creep in there, we have the face masks that are protecting us. We have the hand sanitizing that we're doing all of it where the social distancing is there. So we try to remind folks that if school is safe enough for some, it should be safe for all, but ultimately a parent's wishes for their children always trumps that. Ready to move on to items of business?
Yeah.
Under old business, Valley Unified Mediation. Mediation has been scheduled for Monday, December 21, beginning at 4. We've confirmed that Tammy and Louie will participate in the mediation. It will be a Zoom mediation. And right now, the details of that are not ironed out. We don't have links. We don't have any of that. I do believe that the Valley Unified attorney, Kate, will participate possibly as a Zoom facilitator, I believe, but not in any other capacity. There was a little hang up in getting this date secured, and I think it's centered around the fact that I had advised Valley Unified's attorney that if Valley Unified was going to be discussed, Valley Unified should be present in the mediation. And I think what was understood by that is when people think of Valley Unified, they think of Ben Stirwa, they think of Giselle Dion. And I don't believe there was an appetite to have administrators as part of the mediation. I'm fine with that. I'm fine staying home that evening. So because every member that is mediating for the 3 SAUs is a Valley Unified board member, the attorneys felt that Valley Unified's interests were being met through representation of Valley Unified. So that's been squared away since I said, okay, Giselle and I don't have to be there. Things moved a little bit faster. They set the date. They decided on the Zoom. The mediator is retired Judge Ted Pearson, who is originally from the county. I do not know Judge Pearson personally, but he is the one who has agreed to mediate. There was a call today to have a discussion with council, and I have an update from that I will share with you in executive at the end of the meeting. So right now, Louis and Tammy, December 21 at 4, you two do not necessarily need to be here or together. It's Zoom, so you can be wherever you need to be. But I do feel that now would be the time if we want to ask the other school committee members to be on call. Now might be a good time to say that in case you have some questions that really need to be resolved with a full committee.
Are you guys gonna participate here or in your own offices or homes or what would you?
I've got no problems if you want to meet here.
I'm okay with that.
And I've got no problems if the rest of the board wants to be here as well, even though they might not be able to actually be on that Zoom, but available.
And they can't be just because that would be a public meeting, because you would have a full quorum. They can be on the call, not all together at the same time, but you can reach out to Nick and you can reach out to Mindy and check with them on things. But if we're to be together at any time, it would be a meeting we'd have to post.
True.
So, but if you did post it.
Yep.
If you did post it, then it would suffice and accomplish what Louis trying to.
But in the spirit of what the mediators agreed upon, they did not agree upon full boards mediating together. They agreed upon 2 representatives of each SAU, and that was through the lawyer work that happened in the background. And I don't know that I don't know that our determination to change that would be in the spirit of what it was agreed upon.
Have we asked our attorney that specific question? Would she give us maybe the final no-go?
I can ask.
Again,
I think she encouraged it when we talked with her, because exactly what Ben said is where we're a 5-member board, where that would meet the quorum. Because I think somebody asked that question, but go ahead and ask her again. I mean, she'll decide, she'll let us know.
So you said she said no to that already?
Yeah, when we met with her that first time, because it was brought up to her that, well, we could all be together. And then she was like, well, the quorum would be met, it would have to be posted. And then she came back and said 2 members. But go ahead and reach out to Sarah.
I'm just going to throw another wrench in it. You can't have an official board meeting without a superintendent present, and I think I'm not invited. So, and Giselle's not invited, so. But I'll ask her just to kind of,
But the 3 of you would be available.
Yeah, I can, that day I can let you know where's the easiest way to reach you.
Yeah, I think those are numbers that should be like submitted to Central. So Louis and I can have that list, whatever the best number for you guys to be reached at.
I'll put it in your email.
Yeah, so that way, I mean, we'll have it right here.
Nick's on Snapchat, if you want to reach him on Snapchat.
Yeah.
Snapchat.
That's the easiest way to
communicate.
We'll make a Snapchat group.
You can have Bitmoji if you want.
So that's the information I have right now, and I have a little more to share with you in executive in a little bit.
Any other questions, comments? And we can move to new business. No retirements.
Nope.
No resignations.
Nope.
No transfers.
Nope.
New hire.
New hire. I have a letter here from Lee's. Dear Superintendent Sirwa and the Madawaska School Committee, we are writing this letter to recommend Jeannie Beaulieu for the Title I Educational Technician 3 position at Madawaska Elementary School. Jeannie is a graduate of UMFK with a degree in secondary English with extensive coursework in elementary education. She's taught summer school. She's been a substitute teacher and has been currently working as an ed tech at the St. John Valley Tech School. Just to remind you all too, Jeannie did fill in as a long-term sub for the majority of the year last year in the middle school. Lee's also interviewed with Jen Mazo and Missy Morno and Trisha Armstrong, and they're all recommending Jeannie Beaulieu.
Then was that to replace the lady who moved to 27?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Do I have a motion to accept Jeannie Bowyer as the new Tech 3? Robert, do I have a second? Nick? And any discussion? All those in favor? All right.
And Jeannie's first day is going to be this Monday that just passed.
Okay, we'll move to winter sports.
So I did give you some information from the MPA. There is a joint statement that went out early on November 6th, and it was in collaboration with the MPA, the Superintendent's Association, Maine School Board Association, and the Mills Administration. The MPA did a much better job this time, kind of front-loading what they were thinking and asked for input rather than holding on, and at the end, putting out recommendations without collaborating. These guidelines shadow the fall guidelines pretty closely, with some exceptions. Some of the highlights from this, sports season would have started this Monday had we not been in, well, actually, did they participate Monday? They did Monday, right? Okay. Now that we're in hybrid, they've got to take a pause from that. December 14 would have been the first start date for practices and intra-squad competitions, scrimmages within the same team. And then they're looking at only starting games after January 11th. They really want to make sure the Christmas holiday is examined closely before they allow for that to happen. So they're looking at maybe a January 7th review date. It would be a Aroostook County only competition again. There would not be a minimum amount of games, so you could play a full season. I think high school basketball is 16 games. You could still play 16 games within Aroostook County, or how many games plus the playoff, the Aroostook County playoff. The thing that was a real sticking point for a long time between the different groups who approved this, face coverings must be worn at all times by coaches, officials, and even the athletes during competition. There was one sport that they were saying you don't have to, it was wrestling, which didn't make any sense to anyone. They since have said wrestling is no longer in play. Wrestling is going to the spring if it's to be approved, along with football that also got moved to the spring. So there will be no wrestling. So that's a moot point at this time. But your basketball players will be masking up to play basketball games, and they feel that they can do so safely. And this was because it is an indoor sport. It is a moderate risk, and our kids who are in physical education right now indoors are wearing face masks, and some of them are playing basketball every day and some other different activities. Your skiers will also have to wear face masks. That'll probably be welcome because it'll be warmer on their face. But the face mask was a bit of contention, but it has been, it is part of the guidance. There will be no spectators for indoor events, so basketball games will have no fans because of the indoor gathering limit is 50. Once you put both teams on the floor, the officials, the administrators that you're already at the 50 mark. So we will secure live streaming. We have our WOW live streaming, so every game will be live streamed, and all of our opponents' games will also be live streamed, so we can watch those games via live stream.
Did Colin get upgraded cameras and technology through COVID funds to improve
Yes,
on that?
in CRF1, we
Okay.
purchased the electronic system, 14,000, I think, 12, 14,000, plus a few cameras that were used during soccer season. So some equipment, I know that they need, I don't know if you've met with him yesterday or today.
Yeah, so they're looking to
There's one
buy
more
some
piece.
live, some equipment that they can use to go live at other venues that don't have, that are not set up like within our school, so like the church being one of them.
And for airing at the local elder care facilities. So they're currently looking at the last pieces that we need.
Our outdoor events will be limited to 100 individuals on site, so when we have ski meets, it will be 100 individuals. We'll probably have less teams per meet in order to accomplish that. And there will be no gathering in the lodge. So they're going to encourage buses to stay warm in the parking lot, and the athletes can go warm up on the buses as part of this.
Are they splitting the teams up, like boys, girls, for ski meets?
I think they're doing that as well, that the same way with even basketball, you're gonna have, we're sending you the boys, you're sending us the girls, and that type of thing. Additional steps for sanitation, and that final item impacts us right now. If the school goes hybrid or remote, sports must be paused during that time. And that's a statewide mandate, if you will. The only concern was in regards to wrestling, and that's been nixed. We don't offer wrestling anyway, so that's it's not a concern right now. The only other items that we've talked about as Aroostook County administrators is what about middle school? They have a real shortage right now for referees for basketball. So the last discussion that I heard from the athletic directors was they're going to table middle school basketball towards more the end of the varsity basketball season, starting more after February break for middle school basketball. Typically, what would be that off season between spring sports. So that's hasn't been decided yet, but that was the last conversation. I feel that with the success of our fall sports, with the indoor gathering limits, basically saying that we're not going to have fans indoors for basketball, and they're going to be face masks at all times. I don't see that there's an additional risk compared to what we had this fall. So I would be making the recommendation that you approve this plan.
So do I have a motion to approve the winter sports season for Madawaska Middle High School? Louis Dugal
Second.
and Robert. Any discussion? All those in favor? Then can I ask a question?
Yeah.
What about like math meets? Do those still happen or is
They are having discussions about other clubs. They don't want to allow sports but not allow other clubs. So I know there's supposed to be even guidance coming out on extracurricular band, extracurricular. They're trying to create extracurricular pathways for things that have been kind of stifled in school, and clubs are part of that as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
How is band going? I mean, there was no wind instruments this year, but how is band?
Their
Numbers really went
they're
down?
doing a lot of percussion.
Yeah.
Numbers have gone down.
Yeah.
I dare say there's probably around 20, 25.
Yeah.
They have been really hammering out the percussion. A couple of YouTube videos have circulated. They're doing what they can.
Okay, item C, substitute teacher pay.
There is an adjustment to the minimum wage on January 1. Minimum wage in Maine goes to $12.15 an hour. Can't believe that my teenage kids make $12.15 an hour, by the way. Right now, our base pay for substitutes is $85 a day if you're a non-degree substitute. And if you're working a full day, you essentially should be making a little bit more. You should actually be making $85.05. I don't know that we should make a scale that's $85.05. So I'm proposing that we bump up every scale $1. So you can see on the handout that I've given you, 86 for non-degree, 91 for an associate's degree, 96 for a bachelor's degree. And then if you're a retired or certified teacher, it's $101 a day. We are having a real short, we have a substitute shortage every year, but right now it's really, really dire. So we are thinking about out of the box ways to try to attract folks to become a substitute teacher. So we have some incentives that we'd like to propose in this plan. Number one is currently an incentive that we have had going over the past year. Any substitute who completes the sub skills training, this is an online program through through a website called steady.org. The course is about 7 hours long, and when a potential sub passes this online test at the end, they bring us their certificate. We reimburse them for the course that they took. I think it's $35 for the course, and then they start making $5 more a day on any scale. But we'd like to add a couple more incentives. And this is something I read online on how to attract more substitute teachers. After 40 days of substitute teaching in a school year, your rate would go up $5 on any scale. After 80 days, so we're kind of promoting the subs that want to keep coming back. After 80 days of substitute teaching in a school year, the rate goes up $10 an hour on any scale. And we'll even give them a free school lunch. We'll throw that in there. We talked about Amazon gift cards. We talked about a lot of things, but I think this is a good starting point, and see if we could attract 1 or 2 additional folks to come in. I think it's worth a try. So this is what we're proposing. The incentives, there's a couple notes there at the bottom. The incentives are not available for long-term substitute teachers, and that's because when a substitute teacher goes long-term in a single placement, they start making a teacher's wages after 10 days at whatever scale they fall on. So they would be going backwards if they would get these incentives. And then note 2, it's not available for ed techs who are filling in as a substitute teacher. Every now and then we have to have one of our ed techs fill in as a substitute. We're not providing these incentives to our current employees. So that's the proposal.
Do I have a motion?
There's nothing that you could think of that would have for years of experience as a substitute. If they've, you have it built in for within this calendar year, but
Yeah.
Maybe
We hadn't thought about that. Maybe
something
that's
that, year 1, year 2, year 3 that they've been with you. You can
Right.
you can still have these days where they do X amount of days more for you per school year, but even just having a higher rate for years of service.
that's something we can consider as
I
well.
think we would still have to count days in the
Yeah, yeah. I
years,
mean, still count
because
days, but-
some may work 10 days one year and 50 another year, so, yeah.
However, if you want some bits to roll into another school
Right.
year, so.
Yeah.
Or cumulative days.
Yeah.
Or cumulative,
If
yeah.
you've done 100 days.
So, some years it might be 10 for you, some it might be 4, but at least it's carries on and keeps them going.
Yep.
So I guess that's just a trump of your plan that you have here.
So could we make the changes even though they approve it tonight?
Whatever you want to approve, we can put in this plan. So how do you?
I think we were looking for this to be just this current year, but what if we just said something, a clause that says these can be rolled over for a total of 2 years, 3 years, or whatever?
So after 40 cumulative days, after 80 cumulative days, if we just write that.
Yeah.
That way, it gives them incentive to be for the longevity. Yep. Free back rub?
So would I have a motion? Mindy, second? Nick? Any discussion, further discussion? All those in favor? And now we're gonna move, I need a motion to enter into executive session.
And we could probably do the legal counsel one first.
Okay. To enter for consulting for legal counsel. Do I have a motion? Louis, second? Nick? And
It is 6:24.
24. Second, Louis? Time is 7:20. All those in favor? And I need a motion to adjourn. Nick and Louis. And 7:20. All those in favor?
Thank you all.
Thank you.